In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sanctifier. Amen. Eddie Hilsum was a Dutch Jewish mystic, poet, author, and thinker who wrote extensively in her since-published diary and letters and books during the years preceding World War II and even after she had been deported by the Nazis, sent to a concentration camp. She wrote this piece in particular from the Westerbork transit camp during her transportation to prison. There is a really deep well inside of me. In it dwells God. Sometimes I am there too. And that is all we can manage these days, and also all that really matters, that we safeguard that little piece of you, God, in ourselves. All of today's readings are about water in one way or another. I've noticed that my perspective on water, its value and preciousness, has changed a lot since we moved to Southern California. When I was interviewing as rector here, almost 6 years ago, by the way, I had a challenging 2-day schedule. Mostly, it was broken into 1-hour blocks. One of the things I noticed was that after each block of time or interview, my host would put a bottle of water in my hand and say, "Drink it. Really, drink it." Now, coming directly from Cincinnati, where there was almost too much water in the rivers, in the soil, and even in the humid air, the obsession with water seemed kind of weird. But I understand now. Believe me, I understand. I now understand at a very deep level the centrality of water for life itself. Its preciousness is certainly not lost on me. In the Exodus reading today, the Israelites are complaining again. As they have in the last couple of weeks in our Sunday readings, they are without something, and so complain to Moses, who reports to Yahweh, who then provides for them. This week, they are wandering in the Sinai desert and are without water. You can see why they might complain. God, through Moses, then provides, and God forever, in our scriptures, is identified with water and with life. Gospel reading from Matthew today, Jesus is being grilled by the authorities of his country, religion. He corresponds the followers of John the Baptist, who baptized and washed his followers in water, with the authorities who wouldn't be caught dead assenting to being washed by John. The fact that John's followers were almost universally the unclean of society, prostitutes and tax collectors, and who experienced the transformation of life once washed by the water, most likely didn't thrill the authorities, nor did the comparison. Still, water for Jesus, water for these people, is the medium by which all people, in particular Christians, experience the power and reality of God. It is a symbol of the nature of our divine encounter. It's where we know the presence of God. Water is both the reality of God and the means by which God connects with us. I know I'm not the only one who feels like we are living in a hostile desert environment right now in America. I'm not necessarily just talking about the fact that climate change, drought, has afflicted much of our world and certainly our state. More metaphorically, I'm speaking of this moment we're in right now, this time of the pandemic, the fear related to it, the conflicted pre-election period we're experiencing right now in our country and will for the next 4 weeks or so. The need so many of our country are experiencing as they deal with unemployment and food insecurity, the need for justice and for equity, the howls of loneliness regarding their quarantine, isolation. This is a moment when we all, I think, are having a very difficult time figuring out where and how we can respond with compassion and with effectiveness. I'm personally struggling with how to hold the center in the midst of a community that is violently disagreeing about our political opinions. How to advocate for the many in our community needing our help to eat, to live, to hold on to hope. At times like you, I feel myself feeling spiritually and emotionally desiccated, needing the cool feel of spiritual water for my soul and for my heart. Now, I don't want to suggest that the experience of those who encountered the terror and evil of the Holocaust are somehow equivalent to our lived experience in the current modern moment. However, Eddie Hilsum showed us in an example of how to live in the midst of a confusing, violent, fearsome world. In her life in Amsterdam in the years before the full ascendancy of Nazi control in Holland, Hilsum developed an ideology of showing others the way to their own interior spiritual life in a time of great adversity, the Nazi terror. Her time at Westerbork, the transit center she and her family lived in before they were shipped to Auschwitz, as reflected in her diaries, portrayed the redemption of her spirit while her body was captured and eventually murdered. She neither denies the horror of the Nazi terror nor identifies with her victimhood. In the midst of extreme conditions, Hilsum develops an awareness of the indestructible beauty of the world. She writes during her time at Westerbork, "The sky is full of birds. The purple lupins stand up so regally and peacefully. 2 little old women have sat down for a chat. The sun is shining on my face. And right before our eyes, mass murder. The whole thing is simply beyond comprehension." Hilsum continuously writes from a place of great tenderness, empathy, and realization. It seems to me that as we deal with a confusing and frankly awful world around us, we have to find a deeper source of perspective, of strength, of spiritual grounded identity. Without a deeper source of inspiration, our efforts to understand and respond to the many challenges of this moment will only eventuate in our depletion and our depression. Where to ground ourselves? Where do we find the strength to meet the winds of this current moment? Let me suggest that Hilsum has given us a reliable pattern. For her, the source of ongoing strength and grounding can be found inside of each of us, in that place where we intersect with God, in a space deep within our souls that is available to us through prayer and contemplation. One of the ways that I've come to know this God-soul space is through prayerful guided meditation. It's a particular form of prayer discipline. With your assistance, if you'd like to come along with me, let me use Hilsum's image of the well of living water as an image that can get each of us in touch with the God buried within each of us, a source of spiritual power. I invite you to close your eyes and breathe. Imagine yourself in a safe space, a natural setting, a peaceful place, a place you know or not. Breathe in this place. Breathe in refreshing smells fully. What is this setting of beauty you imagine? In this setting, imagine in front of you a well with rocks or bricks or whatever, a solid space, however. Imagine moving over to the well and looking in and down. The water you expect to be deep within the well is right near the surface, clear, obviously pure and life-giving. Put your hand in the water. Grab a cup of the cold, clear water and drink of it. Drink of this water. So pure and so sweet. This is the taste and feel of the living presence of love, God, of life itself. It is at once holy, other, and sacred, and yet a part of our very being. This is where you and God are one. It is where all spiritual power and perspective originates, where we can found ourselves in the midst of a difficult world. It is the only real thing we can truly count on. As we open our eyes, I invite you to see the world around you, to see the space you're in, perhaps the sound of birds, spiritually the presence of your fellow worshipers this morning, to see in them and to see in all of it, to see in the very nature of reality around you, the living water of our loving God. All of this is part of you, and in union with the eternal God is the place that makes possible our response to our difficult and sometimes awful world. Eddie again. There is a really deep well inside of me. In it dwells God. Sometimes I am there too. And that is all we can manage these days, and also all that really matters, that we safeguard that little piece of you, God, in ourselves. In the name of the God who seeks us, strengthens us, flows within us, and sends us out to love, in the name of the God of love. Amen.